I jumped into this new ecosystem where I saw returns that I had never seen in my life. And that was what caught me in. Okay? That was the bait. It was a good bait. But afterwards, I started to dive in all those projects. And I remember, I don't want to name it because my apprehension of this was a bit weird. For a long time, I thought it was a scam, and maybe it is. But still, they showed that technically be able to open bank accounts for unbanked people without having them to read or be tech savvy and so on. And that was, I think, my aha moment.
Welcome to Hacker Noon Podcast. I'm your host, Trent Lapinski. In this episode, I interview Karim Sabba. He's one of the organizers of Paris Blockchain Week. In this episode, we talk about what's been happening in crypto and blockchain in Europe, particularly what's been going on in France. We also talk about his upcoming event happening mid-April and get into the details of who's coming, what's happening, and what it's going to be like. So please stay tuned. This is an amazing episode, and you get to get a front row seat to what's happening in Paris and what's happening in France in the crypto blockchain scene. Stay tuned.
This episode of Hacker Noon is sponsored by DigitalOcean. Join a community of over 3.5 million developers learning how to build and scale high-performance web apps on the simplest cloud platform. With a flat pay-as-you-go pricing structure and monthly caps across all global data centers, DigitalOcean makes it easy to get the computer resources you need without the billing surprises you get from other cloud providers. Discover why developers love DigitalOcean and get started with a free $100 credit at do.co/hackernoon. Full-stack developer Austin Pocus.
We're using it to host a discourse site. So basically they give us a machine and we run a Dockerized instance of discourse on there. Gets a few clicks and discourse is ready to rock. With DigitalOcean, they have a marketplace where you just click, I want discourse, you provision a droplet, and you're good to go.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm here with Karim. Talk a little bit about who you are and what you're working on.
Yeah, hi. I'm really happy to be talking to you today. So my name is Karim. I'm a French entrepreneur. I used to work in financial markets. I had a very short career in that area, and then I stopped, quit my job, and went full-time into crypto. I started by basically just trading my savings, as most people do. And then I saw a really vibrant, at least in France, vibrant ecosystem, a lot of very interesting people and that kind of new technology and new paradigm that was, I think, interesting for me at the time. And so I started to do a bunch of different things. I started a nonprofit in France. It's the French Digital Asset Association. We work with the government on a lot of topics where we need to regulate the blockchain and crypto ecosystem. So basically tax treatment, accounting treatment, regulation for service providers like exchanges and brokers and stuff like this. In France and a bit at the European Parliament as well. I really love the ecosystem, and so I wanted to basically connect everyone and see what we had in France. So we started meetups. They called Crypto Mondays Paris. They're now the biggest recurring crypto meetup in France. We have a 2,500 strong community, about 200 and 250 people coming every month to the events. And after that, I started my own company with two amazing partners, and it's called Wharton. And Wharton is a crypto broker, dealer, and market maker. So we work with institutional clients, established blockchains that have a native digital assets, and we help them with all problems related to trading. And recently, about 6 months ago, we figured out that there was no blockchain week in Paris, and we've been to most of the blockchain weeks in the world. And so we thought, okay, let's do this ourselves and start the first ever Paris blockchain week. So that's pretty much sums up my days.
Awesome. So the event's actually going to be taking place in the middle of April. What are the dates for that?
Yeah, so the Paris blockchain week lasts from April 13 until April 19th. So that's a series of events We obviously do not organize all the events. We barely sleep organizing our own event. But yeah, during the week, so the tradition in Blockchain Weeks is to have a hackathon the weekend before. So we'll have that. There'll be an official event at the Ministry for the Economy and Finance on Monday morning to kick off the event. And then a bunch of really interesting organizations are going to hold events. So Tezos, there'll be a Binance meetup and an event on Friday focused on really research and academia, so pretty deep tech topics. But the main event is the Paris Blockchain Week Summit, and that's the one I and my team are organizing right now. It will be on April 16th and 17th. We expect about 1,500 people, 100 plus speakers. It's the main event of the week, giving everybody an excuse to come to Paris for a few days and enjoy the other events of the week.
Awesome. And I know there's been protests and stuff happening in Paris, but that shouldn't be an issue because this is happening during the week and not on the weekends. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So travelers can keep that in mind that, they hopefully won't run into too many issues.
Exactly. And if they want to enjoy Paris during the week, they won't have the hassle of going through the queues, the long lines in the subway and so on.
Yeah, it's a beautiful city. I've been before, and it's I've always enjoyed it, and some of the most amazing museums I've probably ever been to. So, can you talk a bit about the speakers and who's going to be at the event?
Yeah, of course. So basically, we like I said, we've been to most of the events in the world. We hold meetups every month, so we kind of have a okay understanding of what everybody's concern is in the French and the global ecosystem. So basically, there are about 4 things. Technology, what are the latest trends in, zero knowledge, post-quantum algorithms, stuff like this. There's concerns and questions in the investment world. So investment in equity, in blockchain startups, and investment directly in the digital assets. Then there's a third topic that would be obviously regulation. And then there's what our corporates are going to do and are doing right now in the blockchain space. So basically those are our 4 tracks: tech, investment, regulation, and corporate. And in the tech track, we'll have people from Parity, people from we only aim for, of course, high-level execs and co-founders or co-developers, like from Parity, Tezos, researchers from the French National Research Center, the best computer science school in France, the Harvard Berkman Klein Center, and so on. We'll have people from OneChain, Cosmos, Tendermint, Algorand, a lot of interesting names. In the investment world, we really aim high, and we'll have some of the biggest crypto trading platforms in the world. So basically Binance, OKX, Huobi, blockchain.com, a lot of some wallet providers, again, the biggest in the world, MyEther wallet, and so on. And in the regulation, again, we aim really for the actual people who make the regulation and will have an actual influence on what's going to happen for all of us trying to build businesses and companies in that space. So again, people from the OECD, EU Commission, the French financial regulator, a few members of parliament, and so on. So great
you
names.
even have someone from the DOJ, if I remember correctly. So you've even got US regulators and officials as well.
Exactly, and another one is kind of new. So we'll have the chief of staff of the chairman of the CFTC and Michelle Corver from the US. She's the Digital Currency Council of the US DOJ, and she's a great woman doing great things in that space. So yeah, we've worked hard to try and bring the best. Basically, we sat down, went through every event that we've been to and said, okay, who do we want to have? Most of the speakers are people that we know. They're our clients, partners, friends from other events, and so on. And so, but yeah, basically. Yeah.
This episode of Hacker Noon is sponsored by DigitalOcean. Join a community of over 3.5 million developers learning how to build and scale high-performance web apps on the simplest cloud platform. With a flat pay-as-you-go pricing structure and monthly caps across all global data centers, DigitalOcean makes it easy to get the computer resources you need without the billing surprises you get from other cloud providers. Discover why developers love DigitalOcean and get started with a free $100 credit at do.co/hackernoon.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite the list of people in the blockchain space. I've been to quite a few events here in San Francisco, and maybe they'll get like one or two of some of the people you listed. So that's pretty awesome to have an event where everyone's kind of there. And this is, as you said, this is one of the first major events like this to be happening in France, in Paris, right?
Yeah, exactly. Before that, we did have a few kind of big events, a few hundred people, but mainly focused on one tech, focused on regulation or corporate. We want to have like the global blockchain ecosystem come to Paris. We see it as a two-way street. We want those guys and the biggest names in the biz to see Paris and see what's happening there. We've had some interesting feedbacks. For instance, one company that I cannot name said they're huge, and they said, okay, I'm going to launch an open offices in Europe. And we were like, okay, where? And they said Germany. So we were a bit sad. And basically after we explained everything that we've been doing with our nonprofit, with the regulators, the meetups, the startups and so on, they said, okay, that's really sad that I didn't know before, because I would have seriously considered France if I had known that. So the goal is to rectify that, show everybody that people can open offices in France. They'll meet a really open and friendly regulator, the people that are available. It's really easy in France to have very interesting discussions with people that know what they're talking about on the regulation side. And we want as well, so I said it was a two-way street, because we want I would say the smaller startups that don't maybe have the budget to travel a lot and do the whole conference circle, to meet those guys as well. And so that's how we structure the event. We'll have a lot of networking opportunities. Everybody we work with, we are actively working on finding some relevant introductions for them, for people that want to meet Paris and so on. Yeah.
Awesome. And so with, some of the political issues and like the economic stuff that's taking place in France, like it's kind of interesting because, you've got that kind of arm of it, going on. Obviously, we don't need to dive too deep into it. But on the other hand, crypto is a potential solution to some of these problems, and blockchain as a whole is a potential solution to some of these problems. Can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing in Europe and like what blockchain really potentially means for the future of Europe and France?
Yeah, basically what's happening in France, everybody knows about it. We've had some concerns from sponsors and speakers being a bit concerned about coming to France in that political climate, and then that's kind of fair, I would say. The thing is, I would say in France, in terms of regulation, 2017 was about year zero, okay, for the time where the IMF, members of parliament, the Ministry of Finance, the Treasury, and so on, really started to dive into that, okay? So basically, as they, I would say, see it still a little bit as a niche and a lesser priority from what's happening on the national scale, okay? I don't think they see it as they would have an all-in strategy as some other people might have tried, like Malta, Estonia, and so on. And so basically, I think it's a really heavy machine, even at the European Commission and the European Parliament. It's a really heavy machine. I think, and I would say from having met some of the people personally, that they are grasping and understanding the real potential of what we can do with blockchain in terms of government organization and so on, voting issues and so on. But it's still a really heavy machine. And the thing is, because we don't have like a consensus in the US, we don't have a huge blog show event with like 4,000, 5,000 attendees. They don't see it as an important issue right now. And so the goal with the event is really to, again, rectify that, show that we can do something major in France. And if we do something major in France, the neighboring countries will start to will keep up the pace and maybe accelerate, as there are a lot of competition between the different financial hubs and tech hubs in Europe.
Yeah, and do you have any like specific examples of some of the things that you've been seeing in Europe in the blockchain space?
Well, I think what we've done in France. So, like I said, so we started the French Digital Assets Association in 2017. Mm-hmm. What was interesting and really struck me, I think, was the speed and rapidity at which we actually drafted laws to create a framework for I'll admit that a fairly smaller topic, which is the tax treatment of crypto gains, but still from going to zero and to members of parliament and ministers saying Bitcoin is a money laundering machine and so on, to we will create an interesting framework for people that hold that kind of assets. It went in less than a year, I would say. So I would say basically Europe has a lot to catch up compared to countries with more flexible regulations, I would say, or countries like the US, where they can move really fast when it comes to regulate innovation and so on. So that was the specific. I remember we thought about the framework for like that smaller topic, tax treatment. We thought about it. We had a meeting in about 2 weeks with members of parliament, pitched the idea. They were already really read about and knowledgeable about the topic, and they prepared. And a few months later, it went into the political machine and got voted and validated by everybody. So that's really, yeah. It was really kind of fast. What we want to do at the event is to have actually something that's like, I don't know how that translates, but like a front desk, okay, for any questions that you might have. If you are a foreign company, a blockchain company, and you have concerns about what you can do in France, you will be able to meet someone from the Treasury, someone from the Ministry for the Economy, someone from the French financial regulator, and so on. And that helps a long way into basically showing our ecosystem, our regulatory ecosystem, what the concerns are anywhere else in the world, and showing those companies that they can have like a really open and easy discussion with those guys.
Awesome. And on a more personal level, like what brought you into the crypto and blockchain space? Like, why does this technology interest you so much?
Yeah, basically, well, if I'm being completely honest, like I said, I used to work in financial markets, and I used to trade structured bonds where the returns are fairly small. And basically, I jumped into this new ecosystem where I saw returns that I had never seen in my life. And that was what caught me in. Okay? That was the bait. Okay? And it was a good bait. But afterwards, I started to dive in all those projects. And I remember, I don't want to name it because my apprehension of this was a bit weird. But basically, I saw that project, and for a long time, I thought it was a scam, and maybe it is. But still, they showed that you could technically be able to open bank accounts for unbanked people without having them to read or be tech savvy and so on. And that was, I think, my aha moment. It was a really small company at the time. I don't even know if they still exist. And that was my aha moment. It was about financial inclusion, bank populations, and so on. And I know Africa has a really extremely vibrant startup scene. They've done that leapfrogging thing where they even bypass some of the innovation steps that we went through. And so I thought, okay, so that's how you bring in 1 billion more people into the economy and helping them have a good life and so on.
Yeah, and many of them are unbanked. And I mean, there's literally countries in Africa where the currency, that the thing that people value is their cell phone minutes. And, that's considered more valuable than paper money or, other means of trade. So, there's definitely an opportunity in those countries to bring them into a new system. And as you said, leapfrog, from being completely untechnological to just all of a sudden, implementing and using the latest, blockchain technology to manage assets and equity and, be able to start startups and companies. And, I've met with a few people that are, definitely working on that in a variety of African countries. So it's really powerful stuff. And it's also incredibly powerful what you're doing in France, shifting laws, getting regulators and lawmakers together in the same room as technologists. I mean, that's amazing. I honestly, I wish we had a little more of that in the U.S. It's
bigger machine, I would say, yeah.
Yeah, it's good to hear that that is happening in France, and you're spearheading that with you and your team. That's definitely some powerful stuff, because hopefully, with all the stuff that's going on in France and in Europe in general, like I personally believe blockchain technology could be a major solution to a lot of the problems that have been facing Europe recently.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I got to ask, since this is the Hacker Noon podcast, what is some time in your life you've had to hack something?
I think other conference organizers are going to hate me, but there's one thing that I really love to do when I go to an event, and it's to sneak in the speaker room. That's my proudest moment. And when I manage to do that, I go like, okay, my ticket has been paid off. I have a great time. And usually they manage to kick me out like 2 or 3 times, and it's just a game of hide and seek, and I have a great time. And that's how I manage sometimes to find new clients and new friends, new speakers, and to get into the private events and so on. So yeah, it's not a really technical hack, but it's really fun, and I love it.
Yeah. No, I've done a few things like that myself as well, and as a journalist, so it's like, sometimes the speakers only hang out in the speaker room. So you get into the speaker room, you get to talk to all the speakers. So yeah. And like, I've been to some events where like they have an investor only room as well, and it's like you get into the investor only room and you're pitching a startup or something, like that's a gold mine. Exactly. So yeah, definitely can relate there. So anyways, what are your final thoughts before we wrap up here?
Yeah, well, I just want to say that we worked really hard to basically bring the best people that we know to France. So I really encourage everybody to use that excuse and basically, the best feedback that we have, I think the best selling point that we have for the event was that the event is in Paris in the spring. And that was a huge sell for like a lot of sponsors that we didn't, that we didn't really know, that are kind of big names. And when we said it's in Paris in the spring, we're like, okay, awesome. I want to come. I'll bring my wife, my husband, my kids, and I'll make a week out of it. But basically, we've worked really hard to bring the best people that we know to the event. Recently, we've secured 2 really interesting keynotes by people that I love, who are David Chum, kind of the godfather of cryptography, and QG Wang from the Ethereum Community Fund. It would be, for David, it would be the first time that he's coming to France for like an event of that scale. I just want to remind everybody that the event is on April 16 and 17 in Paris. The venue is amazing. We didn't talk about it, but the venue is actually the biggest startup campus in the world. A huge building with about 1,000 startups. That's where I work, where you can see it just a little bit, but come for yourself if you want to see it in real life. So yeah, thank you very, very much for having me. I look forward to meeting everybody that I can during the event. And thanks.
Awesome. And they can find you where online?
Oh, yeah. So you can follow me personally on Twitter and LinkedIn. My handle is KRMSBB, Karim Sabba. And otherwise, the website is pbwsummit.com. Get your tickets there. And I think we'll have a Hacker Noon discount that we can share to your clients, to your readers and audience. The promo code will be Hacker Noon 30, which gives you 30% discount on all kinds of tickets. And so, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. Have a good day.
This concludes another episode of the Hacker Noon podcast. I'm your host, Trent Lapinski. Please don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on social media. You can also find us at hackernoon.com and podcast.hackernoon.com for more episodes. Thank you for listening.